Okay, what we're going to do today is learn how to dry brush. So you see here we've got our platform that we created, and we've undercoated that in a sort of a dark medium brown. So what we're going to do is dry brush that and bring out the details and make it look a bit more 3D. So to do that we need a lighter colour, so kind of like a lightish yellowy brown. So I've already mixed that up. I'm not sure if you can see it, but properly within this light, but that's the colour we're using there. So what we do is dip our brush and make sure the whole brush is covered almost, and then wipe most of the paint off. And then the strange part is we pretty much wipe most of it off. So we get our paper towel or toilet paper, whatever you have on hand, and wipe most of it off until hardly any comes off anymore. So probably about that much. And then what we do is we lightly drag it across the surface, concentrating on the edges. So you can probably see the highlights picking up with that light drag. So you don't want any more than that. That's probably, might even be a little bit too much actually. So keep going across the surface and always go against the grain. So going against the grain picks out the details of the wood, and that's what we want. So don't go this way. Always go against the grain sideways. So keep doing that. Whoops, it's even a little bit too much. You can always rub a bit off with your fingers if you do a little bit too much. Keep going all the way across. And again, highlighting those edges even more on the corner bits. Spin it around, look from different angles, make sure you haven't missed any parts, and then again highlighting these edges of the wood. Make sure you don't miss any. Go back across bits you might have missed. Again, a final highlight around the edges. And that's probably about it for this colour. And then you notice the difference between that surface and the one underneath. It looks very flat and dull. And there you have the almost three-dimensional wood type surface. So an old weathered kind of look. Alright, so I'm going to continue doing that along the base and the trunk and branches, and then we'll be ready for a sort of a final highlight. But notice I didn't even have to dip my brush again into the paint. That's all I needed. So you only need a very small amount of paint. Alright, I'll stop it there and then go to the next stage. Okay, so we've finished dry brushing the underside of the platform and the top as we did before. But notice how it brings out all the little details and marks and textures of the bark and the wood. That's what we want. So yeah, done that all in the one colour. And the next is just a final highlight of the very edges. And we do that by an even lighter colour. So I've just added a bit of white to the previous colour to make it a little bit lighter. And then this time we even do less paint than last time. So again, we wipe most, if not all, of the paint off our brush. There's not a huge difference between the two colours. A good way to test as well is to just run along your hand. If it just appears on your skin, then it's probably about right. Okay, so this time we're just concentrating on the edges and corners. Alright, so we do exactly the same as last time, and we press even lighter. So it's just a light sort of drag. Light sort of drag around all the edges. And we sort of blend it in a little bit into the main colour. Not too much. And then we do the same for the underside, around the edges. Edges and corners. I mean, you're not going to see much of the underside anyway, but if you do look, you will notice. Alright, then we just start on the wood and lightly drag it across the wood, just picking up those rough bits of bark and edges of those little support planks that we made. So just bits here and there. This highlight doesn't have to go everywhere, just on bits that sort of stick out. Twirl it around, have a look. I think that's about done. Alright, so there's our finished platform. Ready to be glued down and glued in to our goblin or fairy base. Okay, so here we have our half finished goblin or fairy home. So we've cut out the windows, the door, painted on the outside and the inside. We didn't really have to worry about the top because that's where the roof is going to go. Yeah, so we did our first coat of the dark or medium brown. So what we're going to do now is dry brush it with a lighter brown and bring out that texture detail. So it's kind of look like a mud, almost like a mud hut, almost. So obviously the fairies or goblins have used whatever they could find to create their little house. Alright, so we're going to go for a lighter, sort of a paler brown for this one. So here's the colour brown we're going to use compared to the base colour. Slightly lighter, but it's definitely going to bring out some highlights. So what we do is dip our brush into the paint, whoops, and then like before, we wipe off the majority onto your tissue paper. And because this is a bit more of a rough texture and we want to bring out a lot more detail, we leave quite a bit on the brush compared to last time. Not too thick, of course. we drag it across, and then that brings out the three-dimensional sort of quality of the rough cardboard. And a lot of the time it's good to use the side of the brush. So instead of using the top of the brush like this, what will happen is you'll get into the crevices, and we don't want that. We want to highlight the tops and edges of the detail. So that's why a lot of the time I use the side of the brush. I sort of drag it along the surface on its side, almost like that. And that brings out the raised edges a bit more. So there you go, and you can see already how much of a difference that makes. With the look compared, compare that side to that side. Alright, so I'm going to keep doing that until we're all finished. And there we go. The hut is all dry brushed, and you can see the texture all around. So that just makes it a bit more 3D. And then once we glue our little roof on, that'll be pretty much done. And then we stick that on our platform. Hot glue it. Voila. That'll be the next stage.